Okay, welcome back to the Peace and Progress podcast, episode 6. Today's conversation, I think, topic for me specifically, is talking about my anxiety and like OCD, ADD, all of that stuff, and just dealing with that because I think you obviously see it the most out of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And just things that I've been doing because we talked about in the last one with Brittany how we've both been going to therapy and working through stuff like that. So I think that this is a good time to kind of jump into that. I feel like the last few have been like lighthearted and more fun and not as deep. So that I think is the conversation for today and just um, dealing with that or like living through that sometimes on a day-to-day basis and
Mm-hmm.
how it's exhausting physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things. But I don't know how to kick it off. So where should I start?
I don't know. I mean, when did you realize you had anxiety?
Okay. Let me do that over again because I feel like I didn't like the way that was introed. I feel like it was too I don't know what the word is. I think I'm just tired. I'm exhausted too, and I'm ready to go to bed. Okay. Welcome back to the Peace and Progress podcast, episode 6. Today's conversation we're going to talk about is me dealing with and living with anxiety, OCD, ADD, and I haven't actually been diagnosed with all of those things too. So I should probably put that out there as a disclaimer.
Right.
I haven't been like formally diagnosed with all of those things. It's just in the last conversation, the last podcast that me and Brittany did, and we had talked about going to therapy, and that's one of the things. Anxiety is a huge thing that I've been working through and
Mm-hmm.
with my therapist. So I think starting this conversation is pinpointing, not necessarily pinpointing, but talking about kind of when I noticed that it all started. And I feel like I've had it for a long time. I just feel like it wasn't as, I guess, obvious or in my face as it has been in the last probably, I would say maybe a year to a year and a half. What?
I mean, no. Well, I've known you for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember you really ever having anxiety to the point where I noticed it, I would say. In high school, like I never really, or even not, obviously like middle school, if you were struggling with anxiety in any kind of way at that point, I wouldn't have known. But you did have like general anxiety since we started dating in our 20s.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. So I'll specify a long time for me is more from that time period. I'm not talking
It's
back in high
kind of,
school
you're right, it's kind of obviously amplified
for
within
sure.
the last,
Year to year and a half.
yeah.
No, longer.
Well, I mean, obviously, what has happened in the last year to year and a half, but I'm trying to think before that. Um, I feel like you had pretty bad anxiety before that. I feel like this is ironic, but the more successful you become, the greater your anxiety is. And, with the boys and stuff like that's added to your anxiety as well. Like I count that in like obviously like in your successes.
Mm.
So it's almost like this fear of letting somebody down or letting yourself down or something like that. So as you have obviously like gotten older and you're more successful in your career and then we have the boys like and then obviously everything that's happened within the last year and a half, I feel like that all combined, yes, it's kind of like amplified, but um I wouldn't say that it's just what happened a year and a half ago.
Mm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. I feel like the success thing is a very common thing. I feel like a lot of people get that as you deal with more things. You have more things on your plate, so to speak. So I don't
I
know if
don't think
anxiety
it's
necessarily, but
really that though for you. It's more of a fear of like of losing, whatever success, or a fear of and this is where like that imposter syndrome comes into play too, that fear of like, again, losing all your clientele, or whatever it may be. But um I don't think, in terms of like what you deal with, it's not so much of like stress of all of these things and balancing all these things, anxiety in terms of stress, but it's more or less like a fear. I think it's more fear based, from
mm,
my opinion.
the anxiety or just in general
Your anxiety.
when it relates to work.
No, I think with the boys too. Like, I mean, you've told me before is like you have fears of, not being the best dad that you could be,
Hmm.
and not giving them your all, or um things like that.
I think on that side, it's more for me. It's trying to find that balance and dividing my time between work, like my work mode, and then
Hmm.
like being a parent mode. And it's
And I think you
uh,
try to give your all in both
well for sure. I mean,
avenues.
yeah, I have. It's not like I don't know. I maybe it would be different, but I feel like when you run a business yourself, like you put I think you unintentionally put a lot of pressure on yourself to operate a certain way because you expect a
Right.
certain outcome, or like you have certain expectations of how you would run that. And so like, yeah, of course I give my all on that too, but I also want to be able to give my all at home as, a parent or a
Hmm.
father or a
Hmm.
husband. And I think that I am grateful that I get to work from home and be as present as I can be, because a lot of people don't get that opportunity even still in these times. Like obviously it was a lot different back in the day when we were kids. Like parents always just went to work, and then you either had a
Right.
babysitter or you went to some camp or something like that. And so I am grateful that I get to work from home, but I think that I definitely have a hard time separating the two, work life, because it's like even though I'm home
Hmm.
inside, I'm not in the gym. It's like the work side of my brain doesn't always necessarily know how to shut off.
Right. I mean, you're always, whether it's like content creation or thinking towards the next day or your books or whatever it is, like you're constantly trying to think about what else do I have to do so that
Yeah.
you're not falling behind
Hmm.
in that sense. So,
Not only not falling behind, but also like for me, it's always about how can I stay ahead,
right.
mostly of myself, not necessarily just in general, like like to clarify, like not to stay ahead of like competition or other people, because I don't truthfully at this point in my life, the old me would have been a completely different story. But at this point in my life, like I'm not trying to stay ahead of anybody else except for myself. And I think
Right.
that that's the hardest thing that I battle or struggle with when it comes to like trying to stay on top of everything. And that's, I think, obviously plays a huge role in the anxiety, is just like me trying to do all of the things that I have to do all of the time. And it just doesn't, I don't know how to shut my brain off oftentimes.
Not
And
only that, but you also have a hard time when you are taking on so many things. I think you have a hard time of acknowledging that you're only one person, and it's okay if you don't get everything done,
mhm,
and like the world will still, go on and all of that, and acknowledging that like there's only so many hours in a day. So getting done, obviously, like you're not using that as an excuse, but using that as like justification that, hey, it's going to be okay, and I'm doing what I need to do, and don't get overwhelmed, because obviously, too, is when you start like spiraling into that, like, I have so much to do, and I don't even know where to start, and and then you end up doing like nothing.
mhm.
So it's almost like counterproductive, and it's like just do something, and then if you don't get it to everything, then that's okay too.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is because I oftentimes have gone back and forth between like in my own head thinking about all of the things that I do um like work-wise on a daily basis or a weekly basis, like all of the jobs that I do
Mhm.
um And obviously on like the positive side of like the anxiety, when I'm able to get all of those things done in my head, I feel like accomplished because I'm like, I take a step back and think like I'm only one person and I'm able to get all these things done, and not to like that I'm better than anybody else. I don't think it like that, but I think like the fact that like I'm able to do all of these things and the average single person would lose their mind
Mhm.
trying to do all of these things. But then obviously there's the other side where I become that person that loses my mind doing
Right.
all of those things. And then I often, so it goes from my thought process of like, I'm only one person and I'm running all of these jobs on my own,
Mhm.
completely on my own. And like the average person wouldn't be able to take on this load, this mental load. But then that often flips sometimes on me, and it'll be like, I am only one person and I don't know how people expect me to take on all of this by myself. Like it's a lot. And then it just, and I think that that's where that spiraling effect comes in for me. It's just like, then I start thinking like, this, most people are at a place in their career or their life where they have either an assistant or they have people that they're doing their business with. Like they have partners in their
Mhm.
business and they're outsourcing, I guess, so to speak, and not doing it all on their own because that's a smarter way of thinking.
Right.
Because then they're not taking on all that load, physical and mental load of,
Right. But then you also just said, I don't know how everyone expects me to handle this, and it's like they don't,
I know.
and we've talked about it a lot of times. Is I think in your position, like you've said, is you have obviously however many clients, but they only have one trainer.
Mm-hmm.
So in their perspective, they're not thinking about everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But you have everybody else to think of. So it's hard, when certain situations come up and you're like, why don't they get it? Or why, this, that, and the other. And it's like, but did you tell them kind of what you're already going through? And, or, hey, I have this going on. Not, again, not making like excuses for it, but just more or less like, I'm doing other things. You're not my only client. Just a reminder in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like great clients, and I'm sure all of them would just be like, oh, okay, no worries, just letting you know or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. In those moments where your anxiety is so high and you're just like, why don't they understand? And it's like
Who is they? Because I feel like,
your clients.
yeah, but that sounds like a very negative like verbiage, and it's not. I don't think from that perspective. I don't know if
I'm trying obviously to be like very vague, and there's not like, it's not like I don't have an example, or I don't actually have like a specific example, but there are times where you're just like, I don't get why,
I think, well, okay, so let me try and clarify that because for my, well, I just, yeah, I think that, I don't know, I just don't want it to come off as like a negative thing. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think it's a negative thing. And that's
No,
kind of
it's
like,
more or less the way that you perceive certain things.
no, well, okay, so we'll jump back to the podcast episode that Brittany and I did because we were talking about like taking on the load, the mental load of other
Yes.
people. And I think that the way I explained that to her, like
Mhm.
the way I was reading it,
Mhm.
and the way I said it, it came off as like a negative thing
Mhm.
where it was just like it's hard to deal with people often. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
And
right.
that's when she clarified and was like, I don't want it to sound like that because that doesn't sound inviting. It's almost just like that people don't understand that you're taking on
Yes.
everybody else's
Yes.
issues, so to speak, right? Not issues, but
No,
if
but
they're struggling with something or they're going through something that's tough, it's like you take that on and you understand. I think when you get into it, or at some point you will understand, but when you get into a job like that, like you understand that that's part of that job too. So you're taking on, it's not just like for her, she's not just a hairstylist and I'm not just a personal trainer. Like both of us have that kind of like what we talked about is how we like blend those two worlds of like, you have to talk to your clients if you're a hairstylist.
Mhm.
So you're having conversations and then
Mhm.
people are opening up to you and they're telling you either positive things or negative things. And you obviously have to take that on. And then you see somebody new. And then it's like a whole new conversation or a whole new topic that
Mhm.
you have to go through. And so going back to like getting
I guess a,
overwhelmed, I think.
I guess a good example in like a vague term is like when people ask you to change times. And when, obviously like for them, it's
Oh
just
yeah,
the
that's
one
the
person.
joke is like, I can't, until Brenda changes this, I
Well,
can't send her
and that's a perfect example. That's probably what I meant in terms of like explaining
scheduling.
it. Right. And that one person thinks they're the only person that you have to
Has to move.
move.
Yeah, and I've told clients that before. They know
Right.
that.
But I mean, in the moment, and you're like, why? Like, no, I can't, why
Yeah.
is it so hard for them to understand? Like, it's not that easy, da da da. And
Yeah.
it's like, but did you explain it to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do a good job of explaining that.
Yeah, but in the moment, it's like that impulse, bringing it back to the
I think
anxiety,
it's
that
I think it's
impulse comes back to it. And it's like,
I think the biggest thing for me, like in that regard, is that okay, so going back to like my work life and personal life, like, and me not being able to separate those two,
mm-hmm,
or not at least doing it in a good healthy way for myself, um is that when I leave the gym and I'm not training somebody, like I'm not one-on-one in person, which you know this because you know all the behind the scenes, like you're with me
mm-hmm,
99% of the time, is I can leave that gym and be clocked out for the day, but I'm getting text messages and updates and things that I have to do on the outside of doing just in-person training, right? So
right,
like whether that's online training, check-ins, or sending out workouts, or texting all of my clients back, or checking in with them if we're on like a weight loss journey or whatever, and like I'm making sure that they're sticking to things, or somebody has a question about something, I have to get back to that. So even when I come in from the gym and I clock out, so to speak, I'm never really clocked out.
mm-hmm,
And I think that that's where it kind of gets into that for me in that headspace. Is just like, this is so much. And it's just like, when people don't understand what I say, when I say like, oh, I need a break, you know what I mean? Like, I just need a
right,
break. And it's just like, it's all the behind the scenes stuff. And
mm-hmm.
again, not to complain about it. It's not like a
No,
negative thing, but it's just a part
because,
of the business, or a side of the business that a lot of people don't see. And I
yeah,
think, again, that's something that you have to understand, that you're inviting in when you are owning your own business or you go independent. It's like, unless you outsource and like hire help with an assistant or something like that, like you're taking on that role and that responsibility, and you have to understand that. But I think that for me is like, I just expect other people to understand that as well.
I
And
guess.
that's
And I
it's
think
not
that,
fair for me to assume that on a person, to make that assumption that like, you should understand that you're not the only person that's texting me to either move your session, or
right.
that's texting is like, because
But I
I've
think
had
that you put a lot of pressure on yourself to like in that situation where it's a text message to respond like immediately. So then
I
or
don't, people that know me know I don't respond immediately. Sometimes I take a day or 2 days
okay.
to respond. What? Sometimes I do feel like that, if I, well, because I know I'll forget. So if I can remember in the moment, I'll text you back. But I mean, there's time to ask anybody that texts me. All my clients know, people that train with me, they all know like I'm terrible at texting back,
Right, but I do think there's some anxiety that comes into
for
that.
sure.
Okay, so that's what I was implying.
Okay.
You put pressure on yourself to reply as quickly as possible. Like if you see it come through.
And I'm going to tell you why, because this is what I was just going to say. And there's nobody that I train now that's done this, and nobody recent that has done this. So I already know people will come for me and be like, it sounds like me. I've had people in the past, clients that I've had in the past, that will text me and I don't get back to them right away. And they'll text me again and be like, did you see my text? And then I'll say, yeah, sorry, I saw it. I was just busy. And they'll go, oh, well, I thought you were just ignoring me or something like that.
Oh,
Like, I
right.
just want to make sure you got my text. And it's like, so that's why, and it's past. There's nobody currently that I'm dealing
Right.
with, or
Yeah.
recently that I'm dealing with, that has done that. But I've had clients in the past that have been like that. Like, hey, I texted you 2-3 hours ago. Like, how come
Right.
you haven't responded? And it's like,
Right.
because I'm busy doing other things. I have other clients that I have to train. And the other thing too is like, if you're, let's say you're training with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only fair to you and right that I give you my full undivided attention. So if I were to train you, right, and
Mm-hmm.
then you go on about your day and you text me, but I'm in a session with another client, that would be unfair to them
Right.
for you to assume that I can text you back right away, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can't, like, usually oftentimes in sessions I can check my phone real quick. And if like we're taking a break, like I can respond real quick to whoever, but oftentimes like it's unfair for the person that I'm in person with at that moment to stop everything and not give them, like, that's their session, that's their time that they're paying
Right.
for, and that's, you know, I have to give them that value that they're paying for, you know? It would
Mhm.
be rude of me to just be like, "You know what? I know that you paid for the session, but somebody else that paid earlier, like I got to text them back because they're waiting on me," you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So again, there's nobody currently that's I've dealt with that with, but there have been people in the past where it's just like, you need to understand that there's more than just one, there's more than just you that I'm training, and two, there's more than just training that goes on in my life. That
Mhm.
things I have to give attention to, and like again, ask anybody else this too. It's like even if it takes me a day or 2 days, sometimes like I'll always get back to you.
Mhm.
Sometimes it just takes me a little bit longer, and sometimes I'm not as quick with it as I would like to be. But um, yeah, anxiety. This was a weird. I don't know. We kind of got off on like a weird tangent with that one.
Mhm.
But anyway, I don't know where to go with that.
Well, I mean, obviously you're in therapy, so do you guys talk about how to work through your anxiety?
Yeah. We mm, yeah. I mean, she gives me things to do, and she gives me um things that I should be focusing on, and like how to kind of associate what's triggering it, and like so that I can anticipate if I'm going to be anxious or like I don't know, have I wouldn't say an anxiety attack, but like
No, you haven't really had an anxiety attack in a while.
no.
Do you want to tell everybody what I do when you have an anxiety attack
Y-
in the middle of the night?
You say, "Yeah, go back to sleep."
Yeah.
That's it. Go back to bed.
Go turn on a show.
Yeah. Which is not that easy. I mean, for people that know, and like I don't know. I hate I like talking about it because I feel like bringing awareness to it and like shining a light on it, because other people, like, I wish going through all of this, like I think it's more for me now because I follow certain people on social media. Like I have the ability to like follow who I want, and there's people that I follow that are struggling with that, and it's kind of like I feel seen in that sense. But like I wish prior to going through all of this, I had that before to
Right.
know. And so I like being able to talk about it to like shed light on it. But I also hate talking about it because I don't ever want, like, I'm the type of person, like, I don't like, contrary again to what people believe, is like as extroverted as I can be for the right people. Like, it makes me, it's almost like cringy to me to like have the attention on me.
Mhm.
And I don't like when people like, I don't, it's never for like a sympathetic reason, if that makes sense. It's never like, I don't ever want people to be like, oh, and feel bad for me because I'm struggling with anxiety or dealing with it. And like, to know what it's actually like to go through it, it sucks. But I don't, again, I don't say that for you to feel bad for me. I say that because I don't ever want people to feel this way. And people that do feel this way, it'll be like that aha moment and be like, I get that. Like, I've felt like that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, and I explained it to you the other day. Like, the best way I can explain it is this, it just feels like this heaviness, like this weight that's on your chest, this constant, and it doesn't. And then obviously, like, the mental aspect of that is like my brain doesn't know how to shut off oftentimes. And so I can't like distinguish the difference between like going through life normally and then like going through life super anxious all the time. And it's just almost like the best way I've explained it is it feels like your brain is going 1,000 miles a minute and your body is constantly trying to keep up with it, but it can't.
Mhm.
So like my brain doesn't stop. It just
Mhm.
continues going. And it's just like thinking of all these things that I have to do, that I haven't done, that I need to do, things that like from my past, things that I'm anxious about in the future. And my body's constantly just trying to keep up with that, but it can't. And so it's just like my brain and my body are fighting each other,
Mhm.
and it just leaves me physically exhausted for sure. but like mentally exhausted too, because think about how exhausting it would be to just think about everything all of the time, all day,
Right.
and just not being able to shut it off. And that's one thing that we've been working on in therapy is like finding things to do that distract my brain and focus on something more positive, and that's more um what's the word, more positive in like a, what am I trying to say, like
Like a
it's,
lighter.
well, it's positive in a progressive way, like it's
Mm,
making it's doing something that's progressive as opposed to something that's regressive, right? So it's not like, I don't know what an example would be. I'm trying to think from like therapy what we talked about, but like if I were to just sit and just like think about all these things and be anxious and like do things that don't really matter in the moment, that would be like a regress, like a regressive way of like dealing with the anxiety, as opposed to
right.
like a progressive way would be like focus on like meditating
Mm-hmm.
and like calming your mind, or like, one thing that she's talked with me about is like your five senses,
Mm-hmm.
like using your five senses to kind of
That's
bring,
what, see, and you make fun of me for like, oh, just roll back over and go to sleep.
well,
But
that's
like,
not one of your five senses, is not to go
no,
to sleep.
not that. But like, when I tell you to turn on a show,
Yeah.
and I mean, we used to watch Friends every single night.
Hmm.
So when I would tell you to just like listen to the show, that is what I was referencing, is like, you need to focus on that one thing. And at that time, it was obviously like watching it and listening to it. And obviously, Friends being something that we've watched so many times, like, it's predictable. You know what's going to happen in each episode. So I mean, you would give me a hard time, and it's like, no,
No, it
that's
was
the
more a hard
theory
time because
behind it.
you would literally just go, we'll try and just go back to sleep. And it's like, it's not,
I would never say just go back to sleep. I would say turn on a show
and try and go to sleep.
and try. I would tell you to listen to the show. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it would get real bad. I mean, there was that one time where, and the other thing is, sometimes you wouldn't even tell me. You would like, there
Well,
was one
why?
time you didn't even wake me up. You called your mom out in Westlake,
Mm,
and she like came and showed up at our house at 3 in the morning.
but yeah, but truthfully, why would I tell you if that's always the response? It's just like, that's not, and I
No,
don't
but
mean this in
in
a
that
negative way, but like
situation,
it's not helpful.
by the time your mom got to our house that one time, you were already calm. I had calmed you down.
That was one
And
time.
okay, but any other way, when you wake somebody up in the middle of the night, their responses are not going to be like,
No, I understand.
so I was
But that's
doing
what
my
I'm saying. It's just
best.
like, no, I know. I'm not, again, I'm not saying anything to like knock on you. It's just, if you get a response that's not helpful, like why would it's, I'm just going to continue getting that response. And so it was just like, why, I'm not even going to say anything then. I'll just try and go through it and write it out. And then sometimes you can't. So I think that, I don't know. I don't even know if, have you ever like really dealt with anxiety though?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like when people have, I think that you definitely understand from a different perspective.
I think that the way that we handle our anxiety is different.
It is.
I am the oldest daughter, and I have this anxiety of,
I'm an old daughter.
okay, of feeling the need to handle everything and take care of everything and not show any weakness, kind of thing. And obviously, like, there are certain situations where I can't do that.
Mm,
And then there's other situations, obviously, that we've been going through in the last year and a half where I try and take on everything so you don't have to deal with anything. A
mm-hmm.
lot of, financial stuff and paperwork and stuff. And like you're talking about, you know, the emotional exhaustion. There was stuff with all of that it would give me anxiety almost in like the opposite way, where it was like this fear of making the wrong decision
Mm-hmm.
and not wanting to um I don't know, show any hesitancy or any like unsure, put anything else back on your plate kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like I said, is I was trying to do as much as I could for you because obviously that was like just a hard time already for you. So there was a lot of anxiety. There was one day that, I mean, we dealt with um stuff for your mom's car, and even still it's just like it's not resolved, but there's nothing I can really do at this point. But I was going back and forth with like the DMV and the bank, and they're like telling me things in circles, and I'm so worried about like if I get pulled over in this car that's not registered to me, like all these things, and like your anxiety starts to skyrocket. And that day I just like I couldn't, like you're saying, I couldn't calm down. I couldn't not think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like consuming me, and I was working that day. And I ended up taking the rest of the day off work because I just couldn't like focus on my actual my actual work stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then I took the rest of the day off work. I can't remember if I think you had brought the boys home at that point from school, but I just spent the rest of the day with them, and we went outside and did chalk and stuff like that. And like you're saying, just like kind of grounded myself and reminded myself like all of the things that I was doing and was accomplishing each day. Because in that moment it felt like, why is nobody helping me? Why can't I figure this out? And having to like balance all of that and not show any cracks to you, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, obviously within the last few months, I've had anxiety too. And it's like this constant, like you said, it's like your brain is just constantly going. I just don't share it. And it's just part of my personality. I just hold it all in until I can't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like this, it's more of like a worry with me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have anxiety too. I just don't, I keep it all in. It's
Yeah.
just part of my personality.
I feel like this is a good like representation of dealing with that because I don't know. Literally like for the first time that we've done a podcast like this, like I don't feel I don't know. Like I can't think or process, you know? Like I just don't feel invested in it right now.
The podcast?
Mhm.
You want to stop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not anything.
Just feels disorganized or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I had like a plan of like things. I don't know. I think it's me. I just feel like tired and
Okay, we can scrap it.
yeah. Sorry. It was a good conversation, but I feel like I couldn't focus on like one general topic.
Right. I think that you, in your head, you had a way of, like, I feel like you had something you wanted to say in a certain direction. And each time I was,
No, not really. No, it's
okay.
not you. It's not you. It's not you. I think it was a good conversation. I just think that this is like a perfect representation, at least for me, of like how my brain works. Because I feel like every episode that we've done, every podcast that we've done has been, and I don't know, maybe I watch it back and it's not the way that I'm perceiving it now, but I just feel like I'm so all over the place that I can't focus in like one general direction. And so it's just kind of like, I feel like,
Well, then take the time, tomorrow and start writing down certain, like, sub bullets of your anxiety that you want to talk
yeah,
about and make it a little more structured.
okay. Hmm. I might use snippets of it though for the Instagram, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I can't explain it. I feel like,
Can I ask you one more thing in terms of, your anxiety and you going to therapy? Given the situation, if things were different and, things didn't happen the way they did a year and a half ago, would you have still gone to therapy? And if so, would you have wished that you had gone sooner? just for anxiety in general?
Well, I don't think my anxiety was as bad over 2 years ago. I don't know. You would be a better.
I was asking you to go to therapy for a while.
I know. So I guess the answer is probably no, because I wouldn't feel like there was, and not because I don't say no. I wouldn't have gone to therapy because I feel like it's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also have to remember too, which we'll use this as like bullet points for when we redo this, but you also have to remember, like, you asked me to go to church a lot, and I
True.
was kind of resistant to it. I wasn't against it, but I was resistant to it, and now it's part of. So I don't know. I don't know if it's because of everything that happened that I decided to start doing that, and therapy as well. I personally feel like if I had to give you an answer, would I have gone to therapy 2 years ago? I would say no.
Okay, so then knowing what you know now, I should say,
Uh huh.
do you wish that you would have gone sooner?
Yes, because I think that it's helpful and healing to talk to somebody whose job is to deal with that. It's definitely therapeutic,
Mm-hmm.
not to use that term, but it's therapeutic to talk about everything that's going on in
With
general.
somebody who has no
Just in
connection.
general. Like if I were to talk to you, if I were to
Right.
talk to my dad, if I were to talk to a friend, it's very therapeutic just to have that conversation to get everything out that's inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
or like that's weighing on you heavy. But at the same time, is like they're also not qualified to be in that position to have that conversation. So they're only speaking from the experiences that they know based on whatever conversation you're having. Does that make sense?
You're like saying your family and friends.
Yeah. So if I'm having a conversation with a friend about something that I'm dealing with that they don't really know
Right.
anything about,
Right.
like they can only offer their advice, but it's not one, they're not qualified to have that conversation like a therapist would, like they're
Mm-hmm.
licensed and that's literally their job. But two, it's not going to be the same as a conversation if I were to talk to you about somebody or about something that you also have gone through that's either similar or you went through it at the same period. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a different, so it is still therapeutic to get that out, I think. And so I wouldn't say that I would have never gone to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably would have at some point. I just don't think, I think I would have been more resistant to it for a longer period in my life. But I will say yes. So to answer the first question, no, I don't think I would have gone to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything that happened in the last year and a half is what pushed me to go more so than you just telling me that I needed to. But I will say that now that I have gone for the last year and a half and everything that I do know, had I known how you could feel going to therapy, I think that would have changed my perspective on going. But there's no way to know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's like saying if you were to know that in 3 years you're going to have $6 million, would you, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Well, it's like if you were to be
If
able
you
to
do
predict,
this and then in 3 years you'll have $6 million, would you still do that?
yeah,
Not
you would do that
knowing.
more. You would do that more actively. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if I were to say, if you stick out with your job right now, like let's say you, not speaking for this, and this isn't even going to go on there anyway, but let's say you hate your job.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, this sucks. But if I were to tell you, you know what? If you stick it out for another year, you'll have $6 million from
Mm-hmm.
that job alone. I guarantee you, like something big is going to happen that's going to shift in your industry, and you're going to be $6 million richer if you just stick it out for a year.
Mm-hmm.
The chances of you sticking that out, you're going to be like, oh, well, I already know that this is inevitable. It's going to happen in a year. So I'm just going to
Right.
stick it out, even if I hate it, because at some point it's going to shift and I'm not going to hate it.
Uh,
But if you never know that, you could be going for 10 months and be like, all right, this sucks. I quit. And little did you know, in 2 months, you would have made 6 million. You know what I mean?
right.
So it's just like, there was no way for me to know that therapy would be like, I can only speculate or make assumptions that it's going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But had I known that it would have been as helpful as it's been, I think that would have made me change my perspective and been like, yes, I would have gone sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But the old me 2 years ago, knowing what I knew then, I probably know. I probably would not have gone. I would have still been more resistant to it and been like, you know what? I don't think, not that that I don't need it, because I think that it's like a form of weakness, but I just felt like I wasn't really in a place that like it would have helped me or benefited me, you know? And I think
Yeah,
that
I
that's
mean,
an
I hate to
ignorant way of
say it.
thinking, but
No, I hate to say it, but you weren't at like rock bottom kind of thing. Like you weren't
yeah.
struggling enough.
Hmm.
You were struggling, but it wasn't enough to really feel like you needed because you kind of like ebbed and flowed with your anxiety. Some days it would be fine, and
I mean,
other
I
days it
still
wasn't.
do.
Right.
I
That's
just
what I'm
think
saying.
I think
Is
when
like,
it hits now, for me at least, not to like, and again, I don't want to make it be like I'm being over dramatic, but when the anxiety for me, like it really hits, and I don't know if it's very obvious to you. I mean, it's probably more obvious when I'm vocal to you about it. Like I'm really struggling, but I feel like now when it hits, it really hits. And I try, like, I think it still comes and goes frequently, but there's obviously days where it's a lot more manageable for me, where I can be
yeah.
like, I already know I'm anxious and like I know I'm dealing with this, but like I can manage it and handle it as much as I can for right now. But then there's times where like it hits really hard and it's just like I can't, like I'm
Mhm.
tapped out
Mhm.
physically, mentally, emotionally, like I can't handle anything else. So yeah, it just depends on the situation and how I handle it. And that's one thing that I'm working on in therapy is like, how do I handle it when it hits? You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
whether it's not as bad as it usually is, or whether it's the worst it's ever been. It's like, but what are you doing to handle that?
Mhm.
Are you working on your five senses? Are you meditating? Are you journaling? Are you decompressing and spending time away from doing all of the things that you feel you need to do, whether that's work or life stuff or chores, or are you taking that time to be present with you to just focus on yourself in that moment?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. And I'm still learning that every day. It's like, it's not, you don't just wake up one day and you're like, yep, got to figure it out. This
Mhm.
is what my therapist said to do. So, anyway, so that's, yeah, that sucks. Sorry. Hmm.
Time for bed.
Yeah, let's go to bed. I'm tired.